Before I talk about the unit vector, I first want to talk about vectors in general and their representation. Vectors are generally represented by a directed line segment, which is usually headed with an arrow to show you the direction. The tail of the line segment could be denoted by A, and the head of the segment we could denote it by a B. This vector provides you not only with the size and the magnitude of the vector, but also of the direction of the vector. Let's start with the direction. The vector's direction is usually represented by the letters A, B, A being the tail and B being the head of it, and we need to also show this by putting a little arrow over the top. On the other hand, a vector could also be represented by a letter such as, let's just say V for vector, but it is usually bold. This is helpful if this is written in a textbook because prints can be written in bold letters, but we may not be able to write in bold. So we will need to either put a little cap on the V, put a little line underneath it. If we want to show the magnitude of it, then we will draw two lines, vertical lines, on the outside. These are called the modulus. Now, if we want to represent this AB vector mathematically, we will need to look at it, how far it goes in the x direction and in the y direction. In other words, how far away is the vector's head in the horizontal direction and how far away is the vector's head in the vertical direction. So let's say that in the x direction the distance is 3 units and the vector in the y direction is going to be 4 units. So we could write this vector here as, for instance, our vector could be represented by 3, which is in the x direction, comma 4, or we may also write this in this form here, where we will write it downwards, meaning vertically. It's 3 and 4. Both of those notations can be used. Or the magnitude of this vector can be calculated, and remember we need to put these modulus next to it by Pythagoras' theorem, because it is represented by the red arrow. So it'll be just root 9 plus 16. This will be 5 units long. So now we go into what is a unit vector. And a unit vector is any vector which is 1 unit long. In our case over here, if we call this an A, our A vector is therefore 1, 0. It goes up 1 unit in x direction and none in the y direction. And we can use the Pythagoras theorem to estimate this magnitude, and we find that it is indeed 1 unit long. If we call this vector here B, then in the same way our B vector is also our unit vector with 0, 1. There is no movement in the x direction, but it goes up by 1. And if we wanted to find the magnitude of this vector, then we would use again the Pythagoras theorem and find that this is going to be 1 squared, which is 1 squared, which is root 1, and again we've got 1 unit long. And I must stress that this new vector C here, which is in red, is not a unit vector, because its vector can be represented by 1 to the right and 1 the y direction. And if we now find the magnitude of this vector, you will do it by Pythagoras theorem. You'll notice that it'll be 1 squared plus 1 squared, which is 2. And that is not 1 unit long, which means that this is not a unit vector. In my next video, I'm going to show you how to change any vector of any magnitude into a 1 unit vector. So if you would like to find out, then please subscribe to this so that you can get notification of when this comes.